have very tight schedules. So we're gonna get started, and I'll repeat the instructions that I stated in the beginning. Welcome everybody. If you are a member of the press, welcome. We're asking that people who are signed in via their computer rename their profile so that they can be identified on the Zoom. We are manually muting everybody just so that we don't have background noise on this call. If you're on the speakers list, or when we get to the Q&A part of the program, you can press *6 on your phones to unmute. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us this morning. My name is Sanjay Garla. I'm a vice president with SEIU United Service Workers West. USWW, for those of you who don't know, we're a union of over 45,000 workers in the low-wage service economy here in California. That includes janitors and security officers in office buildings. It includes support staff at stadiums and event centers. And the focus today is the over 7,000 working people who are providing critical services for airports and airlines throughout California that are part of our membership base at USWW. As many of you already know that have been with us and following us for quite a long time, much of our membership comes from immigrant Black and Brown communities in California. We've all seen the reports around the country that show that immigrant communities and communities of color are disproportionately represented in the COVID-19 death tolls. It's heartbreaking to see all these reports coming out. And here in California, while nationwide, while many service workers from these communities have been laid off, those who remain behind are struggling with a combination of exposure at work, lack of access to healthcare, higher rates of asthma, diabetes, and other health conditions. And as we know, this forms a deadly combination for immigrant Black and Brown communities. However, today, we're holding this briefing. This briefing isn't meant to be doom and gloom. This briefing is actually meant to uplift an opportunity to chart a different course in California. We believe that it's possible to chart a different course for the tens of thousands of low-wage airport workers who are coming from these immigrant Black and Brown communities. Today, we're releasing a paper. It's been posted in the chat. It's titled Essential but Vulnerable, California Airport Workers in Crisis. And it talks about it talks about the status of airline contracted employees like cabin cleaners, wheelchair attendants, security officers, and in-flight catering workers, and how folks are faring under the COVID-19 crisis. And again, look, the purpose of telling the story is not to inspire dread, but rather to inspire hope. And I truly believe that our airports in California can lead a different approach in protecting essential workers who are on the front line. And I heard Zoe Lofgren, Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren on the phone, and I want to appreciate her leadership. Today we're going to hear from airline contracted workers who are laid off and the impact of these layoffs on their communities. But thanks to the leadership at our federal level of Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and many others, the recent bailout, the $60 billion bailout for the airlines, included funds earmarked to mitigate the impact of job losses on contracted out airline service workers. So I'm proud to announce that every major airline contractor in the state of California that we work with has applied for these funds. And we all know that we need continued leadership from elected officials and continued advocacy at the federal and state levels to ensure that the money actually gets to workers. But we're hopeful that this can be part of the California success story. But the reality is that in order to get to success, we have to be real about what folks are facing. And the communities and households that airport workers come from we contain a high percentage of immigrants. And the truth is that many immigrants were cut out of the last federal stimulus package, which leaves many of our families behind. Also, it's true that none of the major airlines, United, American, Southwest, Delta, none of the major airlines have taken the necessary steps to ensure that their contractors are maintaining a high standard for health and safety. Cost-saving practices continue, such as a practice called quick turn, which requires cabin cleaners to enter an aircraft and begin cleaning before passengers have deboarded. This despite social distancing requirements that have been put in place. The vast majority of airline contractors, national players such as Prospect, Prime Flight, and ABM Aviation have not signed on to an industry-wide health and safety agreement. Workers have had to take actions on the job to ensure basic protection. And in the report that Andy Hagelshaw has posted in the chat here, Essential but Vulnerable California Airport Workers in Crisis, we outline solutions that come down to a simple thing, that if elected and airport authorities marshal the will and focus to come behind workers who are advocating for change, we can see that change happen. So I want to just walk through our lineup for today real briefly. Actually, I'm hearing some background noise, so if there's folks that can go on mute, or Andy, if you can place people on mute that aren't speaking, that'd be great. So we're going to hear today from frontline workers, Victoria Martinez and Pearl Lee from SFO, Javon Houston and Carla Sanchez from LAX. And there's a number of workers on the line from other airports. And TSA operators actually using them.
Fellas, I think this is a conversation that we need to go ahead and continue with once we pass this other meeting that we're kind of sort of in. But we definitely need to go ahead and continue this conversation that we have specifically about CAP.
The thing is, the more we try to throw them together and get.
All right, thank you. So if you're, I just want to remind folks, if you're not, I'll call on folks for the speakers list, and if you can mute yourself, that'd be great. So just to name the speakers list real quick, we have workers on the line from Oakland Airport and San Jose Airport. And then we're going to also hear from San Francisco Supervisor Gordon Marr, LA Council Member Mike Bonin, Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, and Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who are going to speak on their efforts and their leadership around supporting airport workers. But before we jump in, very briefly, I just want to recognize all the individuals that have taken the time out of their busy schedule to listen in on this, including workers on the front lines, but also from Oakland City Council, we have Nikki Bass and Rebecca Kaplan. From the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, we have Shaman Walton, Asha Safai, and staff from the Office of Hillary Ronan. We have staff from the San Mateo County Board member, Dave Pine, and San Diego Airport Commissioners, Mark West, and San Francisco Airport Commissioner Malcolm Young. But just to keep it rolling, I want to have Gordon Marr open us up. Thank you, Supervisor Marr, for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Actually, I just wanted to make sure everyone can hear me. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. Yeah, I am San Francisco Supervisor. Good morning. Great. I'm San Francisco Supervisor Gordon Marr, and I'm so pleased to join with Congresswomen Lofgren and Lee and other local leaders from throughout the state this morning to speak out in strong support of our airport service workers during this unprecedented health pandemic and growing economic crisis. During normal times, passenger service workers at our airports are an absolutely critical workforce that enables our booming Bay Area economy to function. And during the health pandemic, these workers are an even more critical workforce, allowing for air travel of essential workers and supporting our overall public health emergency operations. Passenger service workers are quite literally putting their lives on the line, cleaning planes, transporting disabled passengers, ensuring security in the terminals, and moving luggage and more. And like so many workers across most industries in our state and country right now, airport service workers have been greatly impacted by mass layoffs. Over 1,000 airline service workers have been laid off here at SFO in the past weeks. Our current crisis shows something we've long known. Economic justice and public health are inextricable. When sick people have to choose between their livelihoods or their health, we are all worse off. When parents have to choose between a paycheck or staying home with their kid whose school is closed, we are all worse off. The Bay Area was ahead of the curve in responding to this pandemic. To keep flattening the curve, we must continue to shelter in place. But while we take shelter, we must also take care. We need to take care of our most vulnerable, as millions of people across the Bay Area need support to weather this storm. In our city and region and state, we have taken action to help people stay both physically and economically healthy. And economic policy is public health policy. When our neighbors can afford to take the time off they need, we are all better off. Here in San Francisco, we led the nation when we created our paid sick leave law in 2006, and we are ready to lead again to protect working people. When Congress took action to expand paid leave for workers, they left out 50% of our workforce by exempting the largest employers. This carve out for corporate America in a time of crisis is inexcusable. So where our federal government is falling short, cities and states have a moral responsibility to step up, fill the gap, and lead the way. With our public health emergency leave law adopted unanimously by the Board of Supervisors last week, over 200,000 San Franciscans will be able to immediately access 2 more weeks of paid leave to take care of themselves and their families, to stay home and to save lives. It provides an additional 2 weeks paid leave that can be used not only when a worker is sick or showing symptoms, but also if they are considered to be vulnerable based on health guidelines, and also if they need to care for a child whose school or care facility is closed due to a health order. Because SFO is outside the geographic boundaries of San Francisco, airport workers are unfortunately not covered by our public health emergency leave ordinance. But I am committed to doing everything I can to ensure that workers at SFO are provided with this critical benefit. We've been able to include airport workers in other San Francisco labor laws because their employers are contractors or lessees with the city. And this includes requiring a higher minimum wage, paid time off, and healthcare for for airport workers. And I'm currently working with our city attorney's office to explore amendments to the public health emergency leave ordinance, or to create a separate ordinance that will cover workers at SFO. And because SFO is in San Mateo County, I would also encourage and be happy to support my colleagues there to enact an expanded leave law that would cover workers at SFO and throughout the county. In closing, I would like to thank all of the airport service workers for your dedication and for your critical role in keeping our economy strong through your labor. And I am, once again, very committed to ensuring that we support you in these very challenging times because you deserve it. And I thank you, SEIU-USWW, for organizing this very important briefing.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Yeah, and I just also want to lift up, Gordon, you has been really a real champion on making sure that the airlines have transparency and public input into airline leases, driving emergency paid sick leave. I want to give a shout out here on this call to Nikki Bass and any other members of the Oakland City Council, Rebecca Kaplan, that are right now trying to figure out how to get an emergency paid sick leave ordinance that would also cover Oakland airport workers. So let's, if we can, if Victoria Martinez, I want to hand the mic over to Victoria, who's a cabin cleaner working for ABM Aviation and servicing United Airlines at SFO. Victoria, are you on?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So a few things that I wanted to talk about would be the first one. An employee, a coworker I work with, was diagnosed with COVID-19, and we had a briefing, and the supervisors brought us into the break room. They gave us a memo saying March 23rd, a coworker had COVID-19, yet we were not given this letter until April 3rd. And on the letter, it also said, do not talk to the press, which I think was done purposely. I think they purposely didn't want to tell us. They kept on saying in the briefing that we've all passed the 14-day mark. There's no one with symptoms. You guys are fine. And we were all sharing a break room. We all share the same break room. We sit there. We have the same time lunches. And another thing is that I refused to go on a plane from China. We were meant to clean it. I refused to go on it because they didn't give me a mask, and I refused to go on it. And they said, if you don't go on it, you will get written up. So I went. I didn't want to lose my job. I didn't want to get written up. And that just brings me to another point where they're not providing us the proper PPE equipment to go on a plane to clean. Sometimes not even enough time, because we'll do quick turns, have 5 minutes to go get on the plane, sometimes just only pick up the trash and walk out. And with all these layoffs that I understand they have to happen, but there's 3 or 4 of us on a team being forced to clean a plane in sometimes less than 5 minutes, and that's not enough time at all for us. They expect us to disinfect it and sanitize it, but we're only given 5 minutes sometimes. And I just feel like they don't care at all about their employees. I mean, during this whole outbreak, I've been given 1 mask. The rest I had to take from Process Center. I had to open the in-flight kits and take them myself. They don't care. They aren't providing us a mask to protect ourselves. They didn't tell us until 14 days later that we were exposed with someone with COVID-19, and we all have families. We have people we go home to. Me personally, I don't. And that's the thing that upset me, is that they put me in a situation like that with someone who had it, and I don't have family here. I'm alone here, and I support myself. I have 3 jobs, and I feel like they don't care at all, which is why I decided to quit. I'm gonna put in my 2 weeks. There's just been too many things with this company that is not right. I don't feel like they're taking care of us, nor does it matter to them if we have the proper equipment, even a mask, just to go on and clean a plane. So those are my thoughts about ABM.
Thank you, Victoria. And I just want to appreciate, Victoria, your courage in coming forward, because the story that you tell is not it's not a story that only is yours to tell. It's a story that many airport workers that are cleaning cabins, you know, moving passengers on wheelchairs, doing security, like it's the story that we're hearing throughout the state in every airport. And so, I just want to lift up that there is still no industry-wide agreement. None of the major contractors, or very few of the contractors, have signed on to any sort of protocols that would put them either in compliance with the CDC guidelines or with common sense practice. So just in the interest of time, I wanted to move to Pearl Lee, who's a San Francisco Airport airline catering worker who's been laid off. Pearl, are you on the phone? Pearl? All right, we're going to come back to Pearl, but I know we have Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren on the phone, and I wanted to open some space here for you to speak. Are you still with us?
I am. Thank you so much for hosting this call and giving us the opportunity to hear directly from these workers. As you know, we have divided government in Washington. The House of Representatives has a Democratic majority, the Senate a Republican majority, and so we've had negotiations between the House and the Senate on things that we think are important in these disaster relief bills. One of the focuses that the House has had, led by our speaker, Nancy Pelosi, is to focus not on the corporations, but on the actual workers who are bearing the brunt of this pandemic. And key to that is to make sure that contract workers are included in any relief package that we adopt. I want to give credit to Peter DeFazio, who chairs our transportation committee in the House. He was a real fighter to make sure that contract employees were included in the payment provisions that we put in the CARES Act. He fought for $3 billion to pay employees for the next 6 months. That's employees of contract firms, airport ground functions, and we did prevail in that in the end with the bill that was passed. There are other provisions that we fought for and the Republicans would not agree to. For example, OSHA standards, so the protective equipment would be mandated and provided to workers so that they could be safe as they did their job. That remains on our agenda as we move forward for the next bill that we're crafting right now. We also gave, and this was something that the President and the Senate insisted on, extraordinary discretion to the Secretary of the Treasury in allocating these funds. We are watching closely, and as I'm sure you know, Speaker Pelosi has announced that there will be a special select committee similar to the Truman Commission to watch over the allocation of these funds and to make sure as best we can that the funds actually go where they are intended, and they're intended to go to those who are employees, not the shareholders, not the CEOs, but the worker bees. You know, I think all of us appreciate it, but not as much as today, how essential people are, and those essential workers, whether they're grocery workers, whether they're cleaning the aircraft, those essential employees may not always be the most highly compensated, but without them, we are simply sunk. So it is important that we prevail in making sure that these funds go to the workers themselves. You can count on me, on Peter DeFazio, on Speaker Pelosi, and the Democrats in the House to put up the biggest fight we possibly can to keep that focus. And with that, I want to thank SEIU and all of the others on this phone. I know Barbara Lee is on the call, and she is a much valued member of the Appropriations Committee, played a key role in helping to put this together. So with that, I will go back to listen mode.
Thank you, Congresswoman Loughran. I just want to again appreciate. I know that in the midst of negotiations over this massive multi-trillion-dollar deal, sometimes it's difficult to keep an eye on those workers who are in the shadow. And I appreciate that Congresswoman Loughran and Congresswoman Barbara Lee have always been able to pick up their phone and have conversations and figure out how to put Black and Brown and immigrant communities at the forefront. With that, I want to hand it over to Congresswoman Lee. If you can figure out how to unmute yourself, you could press *6.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank goodness. I've been listening. And let me tell you, first, thank you so much for this call. And I want to thank Congresswoman Zoe, who chairs, as you know, our California delegation, but has done such a phenomenal job over her life on behalf of our immigrants and on behalf of workers and on behalf of really those who are on the front lines, who oftentimes would get lost in a lot of these debates and a lot of the policy. So just want to give a shout out to Zoe while I'm on this
You
call.
unmuted yourself.
And say thank you so much. I associate myself with all of Congresswoman Lawson's remarks. And so I first want to thank all of you, frontline workers, first responders, for going on and working through this very challenging time and provided the badly needed services, which everyone should be grateful and thankful to you for. You're truly an inspiration to us all. And believe you me, we're going to continue to fight until everything that you need in terms of whether it's the PPE protection, whether it's your job security, whether it's making sure that there's fairness in how these companies are treating you. We're going to fight until that is done. We know and recognize the importance of the work that you do. I mean, we couldn't survive if it weren't for the work that you're doing and have done by cleaning planes and assisting elderly and disabled passengers. You all are putting yourself at risk of exposure, and that's not right. You need those masks. You need everything that everyone should have to be safe in the workplace. And so Zoe mentioned the CARES Act. We're going to do another bill, and where we, because of the politics of it, couldn't get in everything that's needed, we're going to fight to make sure that those provisions are included in our next bill. But I do have to applaud once again Speaker Pelosi and all of you who helped us really make sure we kept focused in terms of preventing the secret corporate bailouts, stock buybacks, and executive bonuses for companies that are receiving government assistance, and to make sure that we focus on the workers and those of you who are on the front lines. And yes, as you said earlier, people of color are more likely to be, first of all, working in these jobs, but also living in neighborhoods exposed to environmental hazards like polluted air and increasing the risks of asthma and of course, all of the underlying health conditions that we recognize. So we have to have a comprehensive approach to make sure that workers are treated fairly and that you receive the type of benefits and priority in the federal bills that we're working on. And so I just want to reiterate and say to you that you come first. You're the priority in all of our legislation. And while these employers who are receiving a bailout, they must, there's no way that they cannot provide paid sick leave and paid sick days to their workers during this public health crisis. And they've got to provide the back wages, back pay, wage replacement for airport workers who have been out of work due to the crisis. So just thank you again very much for the sacrifices that you're making, but also for the inspiration that you're giving us and for the input that you're giving us so that we know that our strategies and what we're putting forth in policies are going to help you and make sure that you have the type of resources that you need during this very dangerous and serious moment. So thank you all again for being here. Thank you again.
Thank you, Congresswoman Lee. So we're running a little behind. I know that there's some workers that are on to speak, but I know that we're going to lose Council Member Mike Bonin in a little bit here. So I wanted to hand the mic over to Council Member Bonin to say a few words, and then we'll go on with the worker testimony.
Well, thank you. And I will try to be brief because my 6-year-old online learning class begins in 8 minutes. So I need to be inside for that one. So thanks for taking me out of order. Let me thank the workers, first of all, for the witness that has been borne today and what we're going to hear later, and for all the stories we've heard in our council chambers in Los Angeles. You know, I think what we've seen, what we know is that even in times, good times and in affluent times, people who are vulnerable and low-wage workers get screwed. And in times of crisis, people who are vulnerable and low-wage workers get doubly screwed. And we've been seeing that. We saw that in the early stages of this pandemic. at LAX. And what's happening here in this country is low-wage workers are either getting laid off, losing their jobs, or they're being sort of forced onto the front lines, underpaid and underprotected as virtual human sacrifices. And it's flat out wrong. And it's on all of us. It's our responsibility to do everything we can to fix it. And here in Los Angeles, we're trying to deal with the unfortunate human sacrifice part of this by trying to protect our frontline service workers, particularly at LAX, which is semi-autonomous from the city, but owned by the city, and we have some control over it. And even before there was a stay-at-home order here, we were hearing wrenching stories from employees who were sent immediately onto planes, given very little time to disinfect them, and then later found out that those planes were had passengers who had been exposed and that they had been putting themselves on the line without the proper equipment, without the proper training. And we immediately, me and a couple of my colleagues, Paul Koretz and Marquis Harris Dawson, proposed some legislation that will require the airport to come up with better protocols and better monitoring and compliance of the safety protocols, bringing in health experts and making sure that the employees are given the equipment that they need. In terms of those who have been laid off, those who have lost their jobs during this crisis, we have been expanding paid sick leave here in Los Angeles for larger companies that aren't covered by the federal program. And we are doing a series of worker protection measures, trying to make sure that people are hired back by seniority. And we're trying to implement a principle at our airport, LAX, where any company, whether it is a concession or airfield support, any company that is doing business with that airport, if they seek any benefit from LAX or any relief whatsoever, they have got to be demonstrating that they are putting their workers first. And for us, and for a lot of our service workers here, that means healthcare. And so we've got a bunch of concessions who are coming in and they want rent relief. Well, they're going to have to pay 2 or 3 months of health care for the entire family, for the people who have been laid off. As sure as low-wage workers getting screwed in a crisis is, there's something that's equally sure. And that's when you try to help people, someone is going to come out of the woodwork and tell you you can't. They're going to tell you we can't afford it, or they can't afford it. They're going to tell you it's not legal. And we have to bust through that, and we have to find ways to be creative about solutions, which is why if somebody wants something from the city or from the airport, they got to give back and they got to protect their workers. That's why in order to make sure we have standards at the airport, healthcare or PPEs and proper training for our service workers getting on those airports, that the way we're trying to address that, although we can't by itself require that, we have a living wage ordinance in our airport, and we can use that as leverage, and we can tweak that in a way to provide those requirements that we might otherwise not have the ability to do so. We are going to do everything we can to protect workers, and I'm sure everyone on this call shares.
You unmuted yourself.
We are going to we're going to set new precedents, and we're going to flex new muscles, and we're going to organize like hell. So thank you to the workers. We're with you, and we're going to fight for you. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Bannon. I also just want to lift up that we have gotten reports from Houston and Denver that the airlines have come asking for rent relief. We're seeing the same requests coming in to airports throughout the state of California, and I think it's refreshing to know that there's elected officials and airport authorities that are out there that have workers at the top of their mind and are making sure that any sort of anything that comes anything that goes to the airlines needs to end up in our communities as well. I wanted to now go back to the speaker list of frontline workers that are on the program, and then we'll open up for Q&A. And I apologize, we're running pretty late here, but is Pearl Lee on the on the phone. If you press *6, you can unmute yourself, or Andy can,
Pearl's
can
unmuted
unmute
now.
you.
Pearl should be
Hello?
unmuted.
Hello? Hello?
Pearl,
Hello?
we can hear you.
Yes. You can hear me, right?
Yeah,
Hello?
welcome.
Oh, okay. Good morning. My name is Pearlie. So I work in airline catering as a flight coordinator for Gay Gourmet. My job is to deliver the food and beverage cards to the airplane at San Francisco. Now I'm laid off. But I have been really afraid to go to work because it's not safe. And I cannot afford the medical bill on my insurance. You know, every week in my job, I have to board different planes and talk to the flight attendant. This means I have close contact with people from all over the world. But the company did not provide face masks. I have to buy my own to keep myself safe. And it's really expensive. Also, many of my coworkers, they work close each other, but they didn't have masks and hand sanitizer. Already in my kitchen, they have 5 persons who test positive for the coronavirus. I'm also worried about getting sick because the insurance is so expensive. I live paycheck to paycheck only, and the deductibles is so high. That means if I got sick and have to go to the hospital, the bill would be thousands of dollars. I cannot afford it. Also, airline catering workers are really afraid because it is unsafe and easy for us to get coronavirus, but the medical insurance is so bad that we cannot afford to pay the bill for treatment. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Pearl, and thank you, Unite here, for partnering with us around a lot of these issues. I want to next move to Jovan Houston, who is a worker over at LAX Airport. Jovan, if you,
yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Can you hear me? All right.
Yep.
Hey guys, I work at the Terminal 5 at LAX. I deal with passenger service, so I'm at checkpoint dealing directly with passengers at day-to-day. So I'm in close contact with the virus that I can get. With that being said, my son has asthma, and I don't know if you guys are aware of the Cudahy incident where they dropped fuel in Cudahy, which is kind of close to Watts, where my son goes to school at. He suffered big from that. So I cannot bring this virus home to my son. I'm scared every day. When I come home from work, I literally strip at the door and go straight to the shower and put my clothes right in the wash. Also, I'm affected. My hours have been cut. I was a full-time employee. Now I'm down to 18 hours. So, you know, I'm clipping coupons, I'm pinching and shopping at different stores just to, you know, make ends meet, but it's greatly affected my life tremendously.
Thank you, Jovan. And, you know, one thing that is highlighted in the report, I think Jovan, you know, speaks to it really eloquently, is that airport adjacent communities, folks that are in the flight path of that, you know, flights coming in and out of these airports, they're suffering from higher rates of asthma and things like that. The report highlights that that folks out next to LA, so LAX suffer the highest rates of asthma emergency room visits and hospitalization in the nation. So low-income communities are nestled in these areas where our children have long-term exposure to air and noise pollution and therefore have asthma and heart disease and diabetes. So I think it's only fair that we're going above and beyond around precautions at work to ensure that our communities aren't negatively impacted. So I want to hand the mic over to Carla Sanchez, who is laid off baggage handler at LAX. Oh, Carla, we lost your video.
Can you see me? Can you see me?
There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, great.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So hi, good morning. My name is Carla Sanchez. I work at LAX Airport, Tom Bradley. I've been there I work for this company called Aviation Safeguards. I've been there about 13 years. And at this point, I've been laid off myself, right? So I'm just worried and concerned of how we're gonna do it with the bills. My mother as well has been laid off. She's been there 15 years in her company. So it's very overwhelming, all this situation, since it started. And at this point, we don't know what's the company's plans or what's gonna happen next, but we just have to sit here, try to be protected. My mother as well, she's also going at work still, only about 4 hours, maybe 12 hours a week, which is a little concern because she's pretty much worried about her health care. She's not working completely what she has to, maybe about 8 hours a week so far now. And completely it's gonna be she's her last week to this week or whatever last day she was working. But yeah, our concern is it's the way the companies have reacted and the way they took things. My company as well, since everything started with the coronavirus, when I was still working, never provided the mask for us, for any of the employees. Didn't have an intention of bringing any boxes, not even one box. So a lot of us were very, very scared, and thank God nobody has gotten sick that I know of. But there's still people behind at my company, speaking for my coworkers as well. They're still there, and at this point, they're not being provided with any type of equipment for safety. And yeah, I'm just very worried about how am I gonna pay bills and all that stuff, and the pandemic like this. And also, I feel that these companies should take some type of responsibility to bringing us back to work. And it's very, very overwhelming to sit here not knowing what's going to happen and how we're going to pay bills and everything. And it's very hard. Can you hear me?
Thank you, Carla. Yeah, thank you for telling your story. I know it's not always easy. So I wanted to keep us moving. I know that we're way over time here, but we do have several workers. We have wheelchair agents, Francis Balacer and Jerome Perry from San Jose Airport, Nestor Golde from SFO, and a handful of other workers on the line. And I just wanted to open it up for any questions that attendees may have, or additional comments from workers or elected officials.
Yes, this is Anna. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
This is Anna. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. I work for Terminal 7 United. I'm my ABM. Only my question was, okay, they laying off people right now. That as that we have seniority, we work only 4 hours. and then we go home. The only thing that was concerning me is there's somebody there that's been working there maybe 24 years. He's the only one who's working 8 hours. And I think it's not fair because they should rotate us every day, everybody,
Do you know what
at
the
least
hub
8
number is?
hours a week, you know? And that person's always working 8 hours, and I don't think it's fair.
There's a lot of background noise, so can I ask Andy, could you put everyone back on mute, and that way folks can manually unmute? All right, great. Thank you. So yeah, what Anna is talking about is issues about seniority, and you have workers that have been there for a long time that the way the layoffs are coming down and the reductions are coming down isn't done in a fair way. So I don't think we're going to be able to get into the details of some of these individual issues, Anna, but maybe we could talk offline with your organizer to discuss that further. But the broader issue is we definitely are struggling with airline contractors and airlines supporting workers and supporting their rights. I do want to, I think I may have forgotten to recognize Councilmember Tao from Oakland City Council, who's also moving paid sick leave and first right to return ordinance in Oakland. So any other questions or feedback from our elected officials or media attendees?
Well, hi. I just want to say something. This is Francis, and we are facing a big problem in San Jose right now. I work for G2. I do wheelchairs, so they officially yesterday they reduced our hours into 4 hours per day, and I live all the way from Hayward to going to San Jose. 25 to 28 miles in a day, and I have nobody with me. My wife is working as well, and we have 2 kids. So I'm really scared for the safety of my kids. I'm being exposed to the airport. We asked the company, we asked my manager to if we can get some hazardous pay, since we're being exposed to the virus, and maybe put some more hours to us so we can survive in every day, and to provide something for my kids. So it's really tough in San Jose right now. So hopefully we can have something to fix this problem, or for every problem, with my co-members for the union.
Thank you, Francis. All right, we're over time, but I wanted to encourage folks to if there's members of the media that want to ask a question.
Hi, yes, Annabelle here with ABC7 in Los Angeles. 2 questions. One, if you could just briefly summarize what you are trying to accomplish, what your specific efforts are right now. And then I don't know if this is in your report, but if you have a breakdown of the exact number or approximate number of people, airport workers across the state that have been laid off, and those whose hours have been reduced, as well as those who are actually still working full time.
Sure. We, in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, we really want to use this opportunity to ensure that airlines and airports and airline contractors are, number one, taking advantage of every opportunity out there to draw down on federal funds and resources to ensure that that airport workers are stay employed or have some sort of source of income. Number two, that that the same entities have established practices that have the highest standards of protection for the health and safety of workers and the public that is moving in and out of the airport. So those are the two top line things that we're asking for airlines and airports to come behind. There's policy items that would help facilitate that. Emergency paid sick leave, which would make it so that an airport worker doesn't have to choose between paying rent and actually following a mandated quarantine order, which are real choices that folks have. But there's a whole host of other things that airports and airlines can do to make sure that we are protecting these communities that are coming into work every day from the virus, and also making sure that the economic impact is being mitigated. And then in terms of numbers, I may have to get back to you on the exact numbers, but the ballpark for us as USWW, and that doesn't include folks like Unite Here and the machinists who also represent contracted out airline service workers. But we've had upwards of 2,500, 3,000 workers throughout the state that have been laid off, and more workers on a daily basis that are experiencing reductions in hours. So we haven't seen the plateau yet of the impact of the reduced travel and the quarantine, the shelter-in-place orders.
I have a question. I'm Jasmine Purefoy from KQED News.
Yeah.
Is there a certain amount of funds that you guys are asking the airlines to cover for medical leave or lost wages for its essential workers?
Sorry, the question was, is there additional funds?
Yes, is there like a certain amount of funds that you guys are allocating to push for policy, or asking for the airlines to cover for the lost wages or for medical leave, if that makes sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have like a dollar amount, but we do know that the airline contractors are applying for the $3 billion dollars in funds that were earmarked to go to workers, airline contracted workers. In addition, airports can take advantage. There's a $10 billion set aside for airports to help pay for things like, airport contracted workers that need emergency paid sick leave or additional staffing for increased disinfecting. So those are things that are available. We don't have a dollar amount and the exact cost for what it would actually cost for airlines and airline contractors to abide by the CDC guidelines on health and safety and change practices that they're change cost-cutting practices they currently have. Go ahead.
Have you guys reached out to the governor for your concerns about how the workers have been treated throughout all of the California airports, and pushing for mandated better policies and how the cleaning practices, like you were saying that you guys are pushing for higher standards for cleaning as well as protection? Has there been anything given to the governor, or has the governor been aware of this?
So we have been engaging with agencies like Cal OSHA, and we plan to engage the governor around health and safety issues. I think for right reasons, a lot of the focus has been on healthcare workers, but I think we really have to expand that to what's happening in the airport. I have a question in the chat from Councilwoman Nikki Bass from Oakland City Council. And the question is, are your Oakland airport employers signed up to get employees tested at Oakland's new test site for direct service providers? The Oakland airport we have 3 employers where the workers have formed a union. They've been organizing to become union. As far as I know from speaking directly to workers, I'm not aware of employers being signed up in Oakland to get employees tested at the test site. And you know that, but I will make the employers aware of that as an opportunity, as a possibility.
Great, Sanjay, this is Councilmember Bass. Thank you for answering that question. We just opened up that test site about a week ago, and it's specifically for frontline direct service providers like the workers who spoke today and your members who are still working and providing essential services. So I'll send you the information so that you can make sure that they know how to sign up.
Thank you. All right. I think we have time for one more question if there's any other questions from the line here, and we will be available for to set up interviews afterwards.
I just wanted to say that hang in there, everybody. We're in this together.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that, I thank you for ending on those words, because that's the hope that we were hoping to capture here. That there's a narrative out there of how this virus has hit our communities, and I remain hopeful that with workers, the brave workers that have been telling their stories on this Zoom press elected briefing, that we will be able to change that course, and we will be able to bring these stories forward and have elected officials and airport authorities come behind what the workers are trying to do. With that, thank you all for being with us, and really appreciate people taking time out of their busy schedules to hear what's going on the ground floor here.
Thank you.